welcome to the USFL Today. I'm your host, Angelo. Make sure you follow us at USFL Today on Twitter and also at USFL Today on YouTube so that you can get alerts and notifications whenever one of our new shows drop, like this one, our second installment in the 8 teams in 8 weeks feature that we've been doing. This week, we're covering the Memphis Showboats, and to help me with the Showboats coverage is Gridiron Heroics one and only Jay Allen. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing good, Angelo. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, welcome to the show, and thanks for helping us here with talking about the Showboats. You are Gridiron Heroics Memphis Showboats correspondent. You also cover the Memphis Tigers, don't you?
Right. I covered them. It's off season now. I was in the press box, and they had a very good season. A couple of things could have went differently. They had a better season, but they're still on the come up right now.
It's nice to talk to someone who's actually in the market as well and understands the city of Memphis from a fan standpoint. You've been a fan for a long time and in Memphis a long time. How many teams have you personally supported now in the spring leagues that run through Memphis?
About 3 from the late 70s on forward through the Showboats in the 80s, and then the Memphis Maniacs in the early 2000s.
Right, the Maniacs of the first XFL iteration. It's been a lot of teams coming through Memphis. A lot of fans have supported each one of those teams. I'm looking forward to how the fans turn out in Memphis for their newest team. What's the buzz out there right now?
It's pretty good right now. The ticket sales are going okay. They're doing like most USFL teams, and they're selling a portion of the stadium so that they get good optics on TV.
Right.
They're selling about 45% of the tickets. It's a huge stadium, first of all. It's almost 60,000 for USFL stadium. That's pretty huge. And so they're only selling about 55% of the 50% of the seats, and they're selling it all on the press box side. So that from the camera angle that you'll be getting on TV, even for just 20 or 25,000 people, it'll look like almost a full house.
No overhead shots, please.
Yes, please.
It's a new franchise in a sense, right? Transplanted Tampa Bay Bandits. However, there's been a lot of new parts brought in. It's not the same roster at all. Let's talk about some of those changes that have taken place. For example, gone is Jordan Tamu at quarterback, and in are a couple of new QBs, right? Let's talk about those guys. One of them is from your Memphis Tigers. Let's start with him.
Brady White, from 3 or 4 years ago, he was like a Memphis legend. The main thing that he did that was of note was finally broke the Central Florida curse. 4 or 5 years they played in the conference championship and lose every year. He led them to a 50-49 win, throwing 7 touchdowns, 486 yards in the air. I mean, even against the Central Florida, who was no 84 Chicago Bears, still 486 yards against a team that was undefeated at the time was extraordinary. And he was an assistant for the Tigers, and then he was the third quarterback put on the roster for the second quarterback put on the roster to go with Cole Kelly.
And then they've recently signed Brady White as well. So that's their third quarterback.
Brady White has been signed, and Cole Kelly. The things that I read, he's out Southeast Louisiana.
Yeah,
he was the FCS All-American. Maybe some injury problems, but he's still listed as the probable starter from the people that do scouting.
What are some of the things that the fans should look for from the quarterback room in terms of quarterback battle? Like, who stands out with what? What's Brady White's specialty? What do you think Cole Kelly is best at, and what should we expect out of that quarterback battle?
Cole Kelly's got a pretty good history at a small college, and so he was putting up some pretty obscene numbers. Brady White has the distinction of being more of a cerebral quarterback. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but when he gets on a streak, he can get 10 or 12 completions in a row. And plus, they still have as of now, they have Dylan at wide receiver, and he was very, very good last year. He's one of the few that they haven't. There hasn't been any turnover from last year at the wide receiver at his position. He had 4 touchdowns last year, and hopefully he'll still be in camp. That's one of the tough things about the USFL is the fact that it's happening right as some of the NFL teams will be doing their drafting and be doing some of their offseason pickups. It's impossible to guess in a month or 6 weeks who will still be on the roster. They have 58 people signed right now, but that could migrate or change.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the NFL process affects the USFL process once they get going with their activities in trying to vet players for their summer camps and get ready for next fall. So a lot of changes aside from the quarterbacks with the Showboats. Gone is also running back Juwan Washington. He was a bit of a spark plug for the Bandits last year. Bruno Reagan from the offensive line has been let go. That surprised me quite a bit. Talk about that. And what do you think the team was thinking when they let a guy like Reagan go, who's really productive?
I was surprised because I was looking and they literally had 4 people walk from last year. And then when they cut or let Bruno Reagan go, I was like, well, who is left? And there is literally no one on the depth chart to play center at this point. They have someone that used to play center in college that could slide over. But like we were talking about, the NFL draft process happening right in the middle of this. Yeah. I think they're anticipating there to be a lot of people that could be filled in. And plus, in the draft, they did draft several offensive linemen, including 2 that were local to the Mid-South area. And so there might be either one or both of those if they do not make a NFL team to be on there. Notably, the first pick was out of Ole Miss, a very good offensive lineman who gave up zero quarterback sacks from his on his PFF rating. So he was excellent in taking care of his business with a quarterback protection.
Now, I was going to ask you about their draft and what was the likelihood that any of the 10 guys chosen might show up in camp versus put themselves through the NFL process.
I was going to say, it being a more regional feel to the team, half of the people that they chose had some sort of Mid-South ties, and especially someone, the number 1 draft pick, who was out of Ole Miss. Oxford, Mississippi is about 65 miles from Memphis.
Right.
Okay. So geography lesson aside, he's guesstimated to be either a 7th round or undrafted pickup for an NFL team. And if it doesn't look good for him to make it, that would be an easy slide for him to slide into where he could stay local and he could still keep his options open with the NFL as it goes into training camp next year.
It's going to be interesting to see how that all works out and which guys of the draftees across the league, right? 80 guys were drafted. How many of them are really going to show up into camp this year? It's going to be a very small percentage. Everyone pretty much agrees. Next year, we will see the effects of this draft more so heading into camp than we will this year.
And one more thing I wanted to point out, most of the people that were drafted, there was some either positional weakness or injury concerns that had kept them from being rated high on NFL draft boards, that they may have had good stats, but like one of the wide receivers, one of the running backs was like 5'6", 5'7", a blocking tackle at 195. Just assorted reasons why it might be a good choice for them to go there if they couldn't make the weight or get over the injury in time for an NFL season.
I got you. So they kind of chose guys with maybe not all grade ones across the board, who might be more likely to slip to them in the near future. Got it. Who's going to play running back this year?
They drafted a guy. I really think he'll be a pickup. They drafted a guy pretty low, but I think that he was drafted low because he's going to go in the pros.
Right.
So they didn't draft anybody directly, and also they didn't draft a quarterback because they already had three. But as far as running backs, I think that they'll be picking someone up from that really didn't make the draft. They didn't draft anyone that highly to be a running back.
Right. I mean, I look at the roster and they have David Ham and they have Justin Stockton and they have Kerrith White. And I'm not familiar with any of those players. So I would imagine that they'll be looking to add someone else impactful to the room to increase the competition.
Right. They didn't have much holdover from last year with Tampa Bay.
Been a lot of turnover on this team on both sides of the ball as they look to re-image the Showboats. Even from the defensive side, let's stick to some of these questionable cuts, if you will. I was a little surprised that Anthony Chaffee got released. He was probably the best defensive back for the Bandits last year. Guy still runs a 4.4 and he was cut. And then I was also surprised that they released Obi Melifonwu, tough name to say, because he was another productive player for the Bandits. So all around, it looks like they're just trying to change things completely. But I just wonder why productive players were let go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It looked like they were trying to remake them in a more regional method, and they even did like a player swap with a Birmingham on a player.
Yes,
because they wanted somebody that would be more local to that area. If the salary isn't high enough to really give a player incentive to play in a region, if they have local ties and a place to live and family in the area, then it's a good stopgap for them to keep their name out there besides just doing training with the trainer and try to make connections through an agent. If they're actually out there on the field, that's the best advertisement for them.
That's an excellent point, and maybe being somewhere close to home to reduce costs, so to speak, is also an enticement to stick around regionally. I liked the approach that Memphis took. I think a few of the teams took a little bit of a regional approach to the guys they drafted, similarly to what the original USFL did with their territorial draft, where schools were assigned to each of the teams, and then only those teams were permitted to draft from that pool, so to speak. So I like the regionalized appeal to bring familiarity to the rosters, because a lot of times the biggest knock against spring football, Jay, and you know this, I never heard of any of these players.
Right. So I think that they recognize when they're trying to sell tickets, most of all, that if they can get someone that was a top level college player, it's going to be a lot more appealing to, especially in SEC country.
Right.
And also for some of the high level FCS have just fervent fans, like that Cole Kelly. I was amazed reading everything online about how much notoriety. And I looked at the stats from Southeast Louisiana, and I was like, oh my, this is just some gaudy numbers.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that in the league now that can put up some numbers, and I wonder how that's going to translate to the USFL game. Because for me, watching the USFL in year one, it definitely felt more like a running league than a passing league to me. But I feel like the league recognized, whether it was through attrition and quarterbacks leaving to go to the other league, or just their own evaluation, which was, we need to improve the quarterback play for year two in the USFL. So it looks like most of the teams have tried to improve their quarterback rooms. I wonder if we will see that translate to a more wide open style of play, as opposed to being more of a conservative running type of league.
I wonder if that had something to do with the reason that they required from the league office them to have each three quarterbacks, so that at least your one of your top two would probably be available at all times. And even if you lost a quarterback to either NFL or to injury, you would still have a top notch guy.
Yeah, and I also wonder if the debacle that befell the 49ers in the NFC Championship and wishing they had a third quarterback might have had something to do with that decision as well.
That makes sense. It really does.
That was the feeling from more than a few places, I think. What about special teams? I'm noticing that there's two kickers on the roster. Looks like there's going to be a kicking competition in Memphis this offseason. Or this camp rather, a kicker from Pittsburgh and a kicker from Georgia State, Alex Kessman, Brandon Wright. Who's the favorite there? Any idea?
I don't know as yet. Memphis has a history of great kickers from Gostkowski to Jake Elliott now. Even Riley Patterson made the pros. So when you think about out of like Memphis Tigers, basically 30 kicking slots in the NFL, and 3 of them were taken by ex-Memphis Tigers in the last 12 years. Is pretty weird.
Yeah, that is weird. I also wonder who's going to be doing the punting in Memphis because I don't see a punter on the roster. So I'm guessing maybe
I don't see one as yet. That would be one of the things that seems like that would be an easy fit off of a training camp cut roster or something like that. And the other thing I was thinking about when you were asking the roster questions was that I haven't seen any discussion anywhere about if any of these people will be coming from XFL roster cuts or having, maybe been a half season in the XFL and then being injured and then wanting to come back to showcase their talents again in the USFL the second part of the spring. I haven't seen any rules or bylaws or discussions of anything like that happening, but you would have to think that would happen at the pay level that they're going at.
It's an interesting question, and I hadn't really considered that, Jay. But when you think about the minimal overlap between the two seasons, and the fact that, like you said, someone could get injured in week 4, 5, 6 here and just get released because of the nature of the shortness of the season, and then those players may want to resurface during the second part of the spring, early part of the summer, to play in the USFL. I guess if they're not under a contract with their XFL team and they're healthy enough to pass a physical, I suppose that we may see a backfill of XFL guys who are free agents to help rosters when injuries start to hit in the middle of the USFL season, week 5, week 6, week 7.
Yeah, especially what you were talking about, because on most of the teams, unless they had a good carryover running back, that the special teams and the punting teams, kickoff guys, would be the easiest fit because they wouldn't have to be coordinated with much. They would just have to learn the 5, be ready for the 5 to 7 plays they'd be involved with every game.
It'll be interesting to see how this all works out, man. Especially with so many players now working and so many players building tape and so many players getting looks. This second season is really interesting. I can't think of a better word right now, but it's really intriguing is the word I want to use. It's really intriguing to see how this is going to all mesh with a blend of new talent being brought in through free agent signings, possible blend of mid-season XFL guys that could sign as well. We're in for a very interesting next dozen or so weeks. I'll say that much.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Liberty Bowl for a second. It's where they're going to be housing the hub. And what I've been to the Liberty Bowl, it was some time ago. It's not a new stadium. What kind of shape is it in these days? Is it still the serviceable stadium it always was?
Serviceable is the word. They have spent a lot of money the last 5 or 10 years on mainly cosmetic changes. They've upgraded the press box. They put seat backs on most of the lower bowl, which was important to take it from like the 1970s, 80s era stadium that it was. A lot of paint, a lot of upkeep on it. And of course, with having to do only 50% of the seats being sold, you'll have great eye lines on it. And the ticket prices are very good, 10, 25, and 40, like most of the league.
Yeah.
So you get really great seat for $25 and have a great eye line and not be, not have to deal with a lot of people directly in front of you probably.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a good setup, and I'm glad to hear that the stadium's in the kind of shape necessary to welcome multiple games this year, and sometimes twice in a day too.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of excitement as Memphis also gets to host the opening game of the season too, that Saturday afternoon at 4:30, as Memphis hosts the Philadelphia Stars. Should be a pretty good game.
That'd be great. Besides being tax day, it'll be a USFL opening, but Memphis will be really psyched up about it. I mean, they were excited not just to be chosen for a franchise, but like you said, to be a hub city was really important. And the fact that some of the days, I don't know how they're doing the ticketing, but there might be a possibility to do like a double header on the days where the Houston, maybe Houston plays in there the same day that the Showboats do. It's weird because they sell a 10-game package where you can see all the Showboats and all the Gamblers games the same price.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool. And I have noticed on the schedule in each of the hubs at least a few doubleheader opportunities where it's not a noon and then a 7 o'clock. It's like a 3 o'clock and a 6 o'clock or 6:30, and they're obviously not going to empty out the stadium and bring in another group of fans in that case.
I mean, an actual football doubleheader, that would be interesting to see how they set that up and sell the tickets for that, and all the different ways that they could promote it.
Well, last year, which I know was completely different because everybody was in Birmingham, after the opening game, which was New Jersey and the Stallions, the next day there was a triple header scheduled, and I went to that. And the only thing that prevented it from being a triple header was the Lightning, which canceled the late game between Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, actually postponed it to the next night. But we did get to see a double header, Michigan versus the Gamblers, and then the Stars and the Breakers. Two really good games, which was awesome. And we would have seen a third game if not for the weather. So, and that was one ticket. So there was no re-entry and pay again. So I'm hoping that they provide that kind of benefit to the fans again this year. That would be great.
I haven't looked at all the games. I just checked out the opening game. It looked like a lot of tickets had been sold, a lot still available. You cannot tell everything from StubHub, but
right,
it had listed, maybe less than 1,000 available, which was good. And I've seen screenshots from other people in my Facebook group that show already 10 to 20% of the tickets for opening day being occupied. That's as of yesterday. So it's going pretty briskly for a new franchise.
Yeah. I wonder. I believe 15,000 is a realistic number for that first day, weather permitting, of course. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a fair number? Do you think I'm undershooting or overshooting?
I think you're probably undershooting for the first one, but it depends on, like you see in all the franchises, the second or the third, and especially the midseason lull where you have the worries about if the team has a bad start, especially in these franchise where there's no loyalty really built up yet.
Right. That's a good point. Memphis really does need to have a good first couple of games to get the interest of the local fans so that they can continue to maintain that attendance. An 0-2 start would not be good for any of the hub teams. That's for sure. Maybe the Stallions can get away with it just because they won the title last year, but that might be the only one.
And plus, they hosted everything last year, so I'm sure that the fans. I mean, I'm sure the fans are very loyal to them.
Yeah,
Birmingham's always been a good semi-pro sports town.
It's been I've always felt like Birmingham and Memphis go hand in hand in that, landscape of spring football history, where they both came out and supported their teams, no matter which league it was. The fans of Birmingham, the fans of Memphis always showed up, and I believe that's going to continue again this year.
That's true. And Memphis is like everywhere else in the USFL that does really good business. It is literally, half a day's drive to get to an NFL city.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even from Memphis to get to Nashville for a game,
you're looking at 4 hours.
4 hours.
It's 5 or 6 on game day because of the traffic.
Wow. Yeah. That's not easy.
Yeah, traffic in Nashville is just insane lately. In terms of the South, I mean, not in terms of other parts of the country, maybe.
Not like here in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, not at all.
We're born in traffic in New Jersey. Tell us a little bit about what you do for Gridiron Heroics, Jay.
I've written about 2 articles a week for them since the middle of last year. I did position summaries of all the University of Memphis football Tigers. They had a good year, but a couple of things could have went better. They've only got one really outstanding player, who was Quindell Johnson. He made all AAC, but he wasn't invited to the draft combine, which for the Memphis Tigers, 13 years since they missed out. Last year was Calvin Austin III. 2 years before was Kenneth Gainwell. They really become kind of running back university. I covered them, and also I write a lot of college football articles focusing on name, imaging, likeness, because I'm really fascinated about the way that is in college sports, and people saying at the beginning it will not become pay for play, and the last month or 3 people realizing it's almost impossible if people play and you can pay them that it won't become pay for play. It's become incredibly transparent and come somewhat despondent sometimes at the way the landscape's become in college football.
It's the way it is now, and we can officially say that college football is the minor leagues, professional minor league. There's no way around it. When players are getting paid, even though they're not really getting paid to play, they're getting paid on that level. They're now professional athletes, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm not saying that in any derogatory way. But it is different, and that's going to affect how recruiting and all of the things that go along with that are going to evolve. No doubt about it.
That's what I've been covering for, and I do some media things for as far as the TV landscape, because no one really covers the non-NFL football leagues as far as ratings. And I've always found that incredibly fascinating, especially the way streaming has changed the way we consume media.
Right. It's a good point. And, the future of how media is consumed, and the future of the value of these contracts that leagues are getting paid for their rights is going to evolve as well. I mean, we're seeing that right now as streaming packages are being signed for $1 billion a year to cover Thursday Night Football. And that's just the first $1 billion a year contract. They ain't going down from here. Yeah. Jay, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow you?
Sure. I'm at Ajax Mem. That's AJAYXEMEM for Memphis, obviously. AJAYXEMEM at Twitter.com. Yeah.
There you go. Make sure you follow this guy, because he does a great job covering the Showboats. He does a great job covering the Tigers, and Gridiron Heroics in general does a great job with all of their awesome articles and the fantastic staff they have in place there. So make sure you give them a follow. Make sure you give me a follow at USFL Today. That's on Twitter, at USFL Today. That's on YouTube, and our New Jersey Generals account at NJ_Generals. Follow all 3 of those, and we'll have more shows rolling out. Next week will be another in our series of 8 teams in 8 weeks, as well as more shows with more great guests from around the USFL. But that's it for this week's episode. Thank you to my guest, Jay Allen, for joining me today. And thank you all for watching. We will see you next week.